Aaron. You ever heard of Wobot or Limbic or WISA? Have you ever heard those names before?
Cannot say that I have.
Okay. Have you ever seen an ad on the internet or been sent to you that says if you need to talk to somebody, if you need a little bit of help with mental health or whatever, if you ever had anybody contact you and say, come right here, we'll be able to help you with it?
I mean, I've seen sparse ads before, like on the World Wide Web.
You're going to see a lot more of them, I'm telling you. This has been going on, by the way. I didn't know in this article that I was reading by Kate Farmer. AI therapy is here, but the oversight isn't. I didn't realize that this has been going on since the 60s and early 70s, this kind of stuff of talking to computers. Basically, people didn't even know they're talking to people. And I'm wondering if, what was that horror franchise about Raccoon City and everything, an umbrella corporation and whatnot? People were, what's her name? The famous model did all the movies, and she's fighting the zombies of the umbrella corporation. Anyway, the villain was a supercomputer called Alice. And guess what? One of these companies was called Alice. Okay, anyway, Kate Farmer's joining us, and she's written an article for RealClearScience called AI Therapy is Here, but the Oversight Isn't. And let's get with her. Kate, how are you today?
Hi, I'm great. It's great to be here.
Let me tell you what. I have been talking for the last several years about AI. It makes me nervous. And maybe it's because the Terminator movies are one of my favorite franchises. I don't know. But the more I hear about this, the more I want to call it Skynet. Am I wrong? I mean, if Elon Musk and all of these big shots that are in this computer realm are signing letters, if Stephen Hawking says AI is going to be the end of humanity, isn't this something that we should be slowing down on instead of speeding into?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. The more difficult side is how do we get these tech producers out there to slow down the AI craze right now? And a lot of the leaders you've just mentioned, Elon Musk and the like, have signed this large open letter. Over 1,000 leaders in the tech industry have signed it recently, and it's calling for a 6-month halt on any development of AI systems more advanced than ChatGPT-4, which is their most recent version. They call it an AI summer of sorts, but their argument, and the argument that you're making too, is that these are developing faster than the speed of regulation, but we also risk them barreling out of control because there's this big market right now for AI systems. Everyone's eating them up. They're looking to see what the next big thing is. So a lot of these developers are moving at warp speed to produce new AI systems, but they're not taking the time to vet them properly. So, yeah, I think we should be worried about that.
Well, if a sword has a sharp side that sounds good, then it's got a sharp side that isn't good. That's the way I always look at it. It always cuts both ways. And here's a good example of what you write about. And everybody's talking about, mental therapy now, and that people need the availability of mental therapy, and AI, and especially the chat GPTs that we're hearing about and everything are starting to fill a void that maybe they shouldn't be the ones filling the void. Maybe it should be human people and not, just really smart computers filling it.
Yeah, I completely agree. But we're hitting at a really key problem here, is that there's a huge demand for mental health care services right now. It's one of the biggest demands we've ever seen, and we're in what some people call like a mental health epidemic. And so there's a lot of people out there who are looking for mental health care, especially younger generations, and they're facing really long wait times. They're facing high prices, and a lot of times they're trying out a lot of different kinds of treatment that isn't really working for them. It's not like in regular healthcare where you go to your primary care provider and then they refer you to a specialist and you get a list of different scientifically backed treatments and diagnoses. In mental health, it's way more nebulous and hard to navigate. And so there's a lot of frustrated patients out there, especially younger demographics who are more comfortable with technology. And so as crazy as it sounds, there's a lot of people who are saying, maybe I'll give these AI apps a try.
Yeah, and it's you mentioned in your article, which I found interesting because I'm an old geezer, so I remember a lot of stuff. That during the AI therapy came into vogue in the 60s and 70s, where programs like Eliza and Alice would respond to basic user inputs and offer a rudimentary form of a listening ear. It's beyond that now. I just read an article and was talking about it in the last half hour. Did you hear this thing they did with Joe Rogan's show?
Not the Joe Rogan show. No, fill me in.
Yeah, well, they took and they let AI do Joe Rogan basically, and they did a segment, and nobody could tell it wasn't Joe Rogan. Now, how scary is that? I want everybody to think about that a minute. How scary is that?
Yeah, it's frustrating, and the Joe Rogan experience is one thing, but therapy is another, and we're in a especially vulnerable population already is what's picking up these apps, and it's concerning to think that these could be viewed as reputable enough substitutes that people start turning to them. At least they know right now when they open an app that's AI therapy that their brand is very clearly, but into the future there could be cutting corners, and there's a lot of risk, and there's been more just unknown. There's so many unknowns, so much more.
Yeah, all of this, I lost you a little bit on that, but all of this is basically unregulated right now. The FDA classifies this under general wellness. Well, I would think that mental health is more than just general wellness, wouldn't you?
Yes, and that's a frustrating classification we have right now, and that for example, other products that the FDA labels as general wellness are in the category of like exercise equipment, video games, other products that are very, very, they're loosely related to just general promotion of health. They can make very general claims, but the FDA has 3 categories for medical devices, which is what this would be classified as, and is classified as, but like there's class 1 through class 3, and the lowest level is class 1, and that's a lot of stuff you pick up at like a CVS or Walgreens down the street. We're talking elastic bandages, examination gloves, things you wouldn't even necessarily call a medical device. Those are a class 1 degree of risk, and this is below that. There's no existing guidance or regulations. There's only non-binding guidelines from the FDA that are also from 2019, and so the FDA is known to be slow, and this is certainly one of the examples of this, but the bottom line here is that users are on their own, and the claims that these apps are making about their safety and effectiveness, we have no way to verify them, so users have to be really careful because they don't fully know what they're getting.
Hey, well, let's look at this seriously, just in reality, and that's what I think you do in your article. How many people depend on Alexa to give them all kinds of information, and they don't doubt it one moment? And now you're going to get mental health benefits, and you've already gotten used to talking to Cersei or Alexa. Why not talk to an app about your mental health and take it verbatim?
Yeah, well, it goes without saying that it's hard to imitate a human voice and human interaction, but the way that these systems learn, even the way that Alexas and the like learn, they're all artificial intelligence, and they all learn the same way and are trained on the same data. Essentially, the way that it works is it reads large chunks of data, which is the internet. The internet makes all that freely available, and so these systems learn by just reading a lot of data and content on the internet, and they do pattern recognition. So after A and B usually comes C, not F or G or 7 or China. It's pattern recognition.
Right.
And so it becomes very good at picking up on patterns and saying, okay, when I get this input, I usually get this given output. But it's not real knowledge. It's just sort of repetition and, again, pattern recognition. So
it's an
it
algorithm.
can do a pretty good job of it can do a pretty good job of guesswork, but that's what it's reduced to, is guesswork. And so when it sees your thoughts being plugged in, it can say, this is the typical response that I'm getting, and still prone to hallucinations and all the other, flaws of AI systems. And so in a sense, they're all kind of the same in that they're all structured this way. And that makes it hard to trust, especially with something so vulnerable and something with so much nuance. That's the big, driving line here.
It's amazing. I'm just telling you, it's amazing. By the way, I gotta tell my listeners, Kate, that you remind me a whole lot of Ben Shapiro. And the reason why is I had Ben Shapiro on when he was 16 years old, and he was writing conservative news columns. And I knew then he was a special person, and he's gone on to prove himself special. You're just a sophomore at Washington University in St. Louis, correct?
Yes, sir, I am.
That's amazing. What you've written in this article is amazing. Of course, people don't know Washington University is one of the great universities in America. It's amazing what you've come up with here. And what is your age? How old are you?
Well, that's very kind. I'm 21, actually. I did the move where I took a year off when COVID hit. So I started college when the pandemic was a lot lighter. So I got that extra time in beforehand, which was a great decision.
Okay, so going from our last story where we're talking about the intelligence leak and these guys that are over on a website leaking out America's secrets, and a guy talking about the dude who's doing it and say, well, I know he's not a Russian operative. Well, you don't know him. You know him from being online with him. For God's sakes, you're a teenager. Shut up. I'm amazed. I'm really happy that we were able to have you on today. So what is your suggestion here? Does the FDA need to have something that pops up on these sites that tells people not, like you have at the bottom of certain vitamins and supplements, these have not been tested, so to speak?
It remains to be seen, because AI therapy is sort of straddling two different regulatory spaces here. There's AI therapy as a medical device, which is what it is right now, but then there's the greater concept of AI as a whole, and what our government's going to do to give oversight into the AI system, and how are they going to regulate it and regard it in the way that they developed regulations and just certain levels of regard for the internet when that was getting developed. And so it's possible that the FDA will make some moves here. It's certainly been talking with some of these apps that want to work with specific diagnosable conditions. Some of them are in the process of working with the FDA. They may change their guidelines. It's probably likely they will, but greater AI regulation is what we're also wading into, and that's a big question mark right now. So that kind of throws a wrench into this, so we're just going to have to see. It's with many other AI things, all we can really do is wait.
All right, so Kate Farmer, thanks for being with us. The name of the article, again, from RealClearScience. AI therapy is here, but the oversight isn't. So I'm going to put a caveat. I'm going to put a little headline underneath this, and it says, user beware.
It was great to be on. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for being with us. You have a great day. All right, Kate Farmer, here on the Dave Elswick Show. What a thinker, huh? 21 years old. I wasn't thinking about that. I'll just tell you that much. I wasn't close to that. I was in fraternity at that point. What can I tell you? All right, I was in fraternity at 21. That tells you where I was at, Aaron. I was in teak at that. I was a teak at that time in fraternity. All right, let's take a quick break. I'm looking at the time. It's 20 minutes after 9. Thank you to Kate.